intro this time? Episode 2?
Yeah.
Episode 22? Do you want to like just jump up?
Start
so we
at
just
22.
juice our numbers?
1 to 22. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Episode 2 of the Perfect Specimen podcast.
Perfect specimen.
The Perfect Specimen. We had a lot of fun on episode 1.
That was good. I was learning.
Yeah. The hour went by really quick.
Yeah,
it was a fun time.
We gotta give a shout out to your grandma because
Yes.
she's our super fan now.
She's probably our biggest fan.
Nice.
Yeah. Shout out to Nana.
Shout out to Nana. How was your Christmas?
Oh, it's good.
Yeah?
This is the first time in 8 years of being with my wife that we've had Christmas off together. Either I've been working or she's been, she's an emergency room nurse for anyone that's tuning in. So it was kind of a weird experience to wake up and actually have your wife there. So
You're like, oh,
on
shit,
Christmas.
I have to get a Christmas present.
yeah, totally. No, it was nice though.
Nice.
Yeah, I had a pretty chill day.
Yeah.
And yeah.
You experienced something new for Christmas this year. You watched Die Hard, the ultimate Christmas movie, for the first time.
I have nothing bad to say about Die Hard.
It's such a good movie.
It was fantastic. Start to finish.
Yeah.
Fantastic movie.
Yeah.
And I definitely can see that built into a Christmas tradition of
Yeah.
watching Die Hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Ours is, we love National Lampoon's holiday vacation or Christmas vacation. I think it is.
Yeah, you also can't go wrong with that.
I
It's a
love
staple.
that movie so
Yeah,
much. They're
yeah.
so good.
There's kind of two types of people. There are the we are gonna jam as many Christmas movies into the holidays as possible, and
Yeah.
then some people are just like, stay away.
Yeah. No.
You know?
I know.
I kind of feel bad. My wife was really upset at my lack of wanting to watch a bunch of Christmas movies.
Yeah, that's it's fun. I thought you were leading into have you heard the meme of there's two types of people. There's the people that think Die Hard is a Christmas movie, then
Right.
there's people that are wrong. These people get so butthurt about
Yeah.
Die Hard's not a Christmas movie, blah blah blah. Like it's
a hill they will
funny.
die on.
Oh yeah, it's funny. Those passionate holiday people. Yeah,
Totally.
they're hilarious. Yeah.
Yeah. How are you finding Christmas as your kids are getting a bit older?
It's fun. This Christmas was different because both of them were sick, which is actually kind of nice because they were just super low energy and chill. Whereas usually it's just chaos. Jack's flying, he was still flying through presents. They get him and just rip through them, and they're just crushing the presents. And then they hit that peak. It's like a candy rush where you just hit that peak and then they just crash. And then it's just crying, tears, miserable. It's can't wait for you to experience it because it's such a funny thing. There's the peak of emotions. But this Christmas was unique because they actually didn't ask for much stuff. They asked for a fox, stuffy, and watches from Santa, little
Wow.
fake eye watches from Amazon, which was all right, let's do this. Yeah. And then it's got a shit ton of Lego, and I love Lego because you can just whatever. Yeah. It's creative, right?
Did you know that I feel like there's a good percentage of the population that are adults that are super into Lego?
Dude, I follow some channels of Lego builder people, and these guys have huge rooms just dedicated to it. And it's this set. And they're $1,000 sets of Lego.
Yeah.
And holy shit.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, they cost tons of money.
Oh, yeah.
I guess.
There's an NBA, or I forget who it is. He's a passionate Lego guy, like you said. And he's 7 feet tall. He has a 7 foot tall Darth Vader made of himself, but it's his head is Darth Vader.
Yeah.
It's massive. And it's crazy.
So do they just display these in their homes?
I guess
Is this
so.
something that you build?
I don't know.
You just put up on your shelf?
He does. He had it in his center of his living room when you walk in.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny. But I don't know.
People are into weird stuff, man. There's these giant teddy bears that people collect. I don't know if you've ever seen those. They're it almost looks like if a Lego person was built into a teddy bear and then was scaled up, sort of a foot tall, maybe 2 feet tall. And people collect them, and they pay, again, hundreds, thousands of dollars for these things. And they just put them up on their shelves.
For a foot tall teddy bear?
Yes. I'm dead serious. It's
People collect weird shit.
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I guess it's no different than like Pokemon cards or Magic cards, right?
Yeah.
And all that.
Yeah.
Did I tell you I bought like a giant pack of Pokemon cards a while ago?
Did you?
So I've like since my childhood, my dream has always been to like get one of those big sets of Pokemon cards, like the big boxes, because you know you get a little pack and you rip in.
Yeah,
You're like, 5 cards, cool.
Sure.
I got the entire box.
Wow.
And it was like the best thing ever. I regret nothing. I just sat there just ripping packs, and like the thing was like $60 probably for this box, and it was glorious because it was like the original Pokemon from when I grew up. So I was just like crushing packs, and just the feeling of
Takes you back to being a kid again of what that was like, not knowing what you're gonna get.
So cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I pulled one card that like basically worth the entire pack. So I was like, sick. Pays for itself, and the rest of the cards like, kids, go nuts. These are yours.
I wonder if that was the start of some people's gambling addictions in their adult life. It
Guaranteed.
began when they were a kid
Just
opening
ripping
Pokemon cards. They got that dopamine hit every time.
Yeah. Do you follow Counter-Strike at all, like the video game?
No, not really. No, I know of it. But.
So Counter-Strike is like a first-person shooter, but in the game itself, you can get these chests, or these they're boxes basically, and like you have to buy keys for them. And people spend money on them, like insane amounts of money. These boxes are worth like hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars, and you'll open them and you'll get something. Just it's gambling basically.
Yeah,
because it just rolls through and it's like, what's in the box? What's in the box? And it's like, oh, something worth $2, or it's like, but it could be worth $20,000. It's just that same like addiction.
Gambling is super weird. We had that staff Christmas party, and we were gambling with fake money. It was fun money, and my heart's still going. I'm like, what is this?
I see you over there just like betting like a little bit at a time, like $100. I'm just throwing down like 10K at a time.
Yeah.
Like, who cares?
Yeah, you're doing the complete
just,
opposite.
Like, just burned all of it.
I'm like trying to hoard my money. I'm like, it's not even real.
Yeah, to buy raffle tickets for a fridge.
Yeah. Hey, man. That fridge is sweet.
Regret nothing.
Yeah.
Did I gotta tell you about so Christmas was good. And then after Christmas, I had like to deal with this absolute shit person on Facebook. Oh, I hate Facebook Marketplace. Just like the scum of the earth on there. So this person, I'm like trying to buy us some more mics and stuff for the podcast setup. They had like a sweet package of like 4 pod mics, like this big roadcaster, all this gear for like, they had it listed for like $1,000 or messaged me for like the individual prices. So I'm like, oh, how much is a mic? Like, oh, mics are like $60 each. I was like, sweet. Like, I'll buy all 4 because I can resell them for more money. Why not?
It's awesome.
Yeah. So she's like, oh, let me check with my boyfriend. Goes talk to his boyfriend. And she's like, yeah, that's too low. Like, I can't do it for whatever. I was like $250 for all the mics. Like, whatever. I'll pay what you're asking. No, it's too low. We've sold one of the mics, so $250 for 3. So I'm like, well, like shit. Not a great deal, but still better. So I'm like, well, I'll just buy one mic for 80 then, because I'm thinking in my head like, $250 divided by 3, roughly like $80, just over 80, like $80. No, like they're worth more. I'm like, okay, what are we doing here?
Yeah, what is going on?
At this point, like it'd been like 2 days. It's the person that like messaged you and then like MIA for like 4 hours. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
And so I was getting pissed off, and I just like start snarky like, okay, how do we go from 60 to 80 to I don't even know what you're charging now? And then she's like,
who am I dealing with?
Sends me a message of like, here's the full retail price. I'm like, that's fantastic. Yeah. But know what you're doing before you post it, and stop telling me. I was furious.
Yeah, you're wasting people's time. You're posting prices. Oh. Now, did you go out of the way to give like a 1 star?
I did. So
go.
I didn't do 1 star because I feel like 1 star is too like
extreme
where people just don't trust it.
Yeah.
So I did 2. And then I'm like,
yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
And then I just tore them apart in the comments. Yeah. So but like, she's also like, can you come pick up today initially when it was like the first offer? I was like, it's Christmas Day. Like, no, I'm not driving on Christmas Day.
I kind of take pride in my my Facebook Marketplace score. I've got a good score. I want to preserve those
believe that like how a person acts on Facebook Marketplace and like Kijiji or whatever is a direct reflection of who they are as a person.
Yeah.
You know, if they're a shitty person and they're disorganized and they're just like all over the place, like that's who they are in real life.
Spills into real life. They probably don't put their shopping cart away.
It's just the worst.
You know the shopping cart analogy.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. It's probably good. I think it's a good.
It is. And even like if you get something in the grocery store, by mistake or you find something else,
Yeah.
do you go back and put it back, or do you like just set it on the shelf?
I'd say the majority of the time I go to put it back.
Yeah. It depends. Like if you're checking out and it's like complete opposite side and it's not cheese or something that's going to go bad, you're like,
there's a very rare time when I don't. There's a lot of little examples in your life of things that require a little bit more energy and work, but you deep down know it's the right thing to do. So I'm at Costco a few days ago and it's busy. It's the holidays. There's a lot of people there. One of the cart corrals is so backed up, it's spilling into the lane. And it's getting to the point where it's backed up like almost like 3/4 of the way through the lane. So cars can't even drive through. But the other side is empty. But people just keep putting it on the one side, like into the lane. So I go around, it takes me an extra minute. I put it on the proper side, and I'm looking at people just
hammering it in there.
It's the convenient thing to do. Right? It kind of blows your mind in a sense. It's a little bit of effort, but deep down, how do you not know that that's the wrong thing to do?
We make a joke at work about like using the electric can opener versus the
manual
can opener. And it's like a point of pride. I don't know why to not use the electric can opener. I don't know why it is, but it's like are you an electric can opener kind of person, or are you a manual?
Put the work in.
Just like putting that little extra in.
I don't know. Well, life is getting easy. There's so many
little shortcuts.
So many shortcuts
you can nail it in.
Yeah, totally.
Where I was kind of like thinking now from like that Facebook Marketplace story to you have time in like the food service industry, right?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, so I worked at Boston Pizza as well for like a grand total of 2 weeks.
Yeah, very experienced.
Very, very astute.
Yeah.
But even that short amount of time, I think was invaluable in teaching like how miserable that job can be and how miserable people can make that job be. You can either be like a great customer and like treat people right, be kind, be patient, understanding. Like sometimes it's out of your control, right?
Yeah.
You just can't do anything. But I think it's pretty obvious when a person has never had to do that in their life.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like there's zero empathy sometimes from people of like, you get the Karen in there. It's like, where's this? Where's that? Blah. And you're like, just chill. Like you're still a human being.
I remember, I'd come in after a night shift at the hall and we might have done like a code. And so we're, pumping on someone's chest for an hour. And you see the extremes of how bad life can be for people, right? You saw someone lose their family member in a house and just the emotions and the trauma and the mess. And then you go to work and you see someone deeply angry and upset that their steak came out medium and not medium rare. And that is the worst thing that's happened to them in a long time. And you're going to know about it. Yeah. And having just had the perspective of having, a few bad calls at work and then seeing that contrast to a literal non-issue being a very big issue for another human being. I think that life is about perspective and it kind of stems back to searching for perspective. The more experiences you can have, the better perspective you'll be able to have in your own life to deal with issues. And some people just don't have that.
They don't, right? It's those little things of like, is this really as bad as I'm making out to be? Is this the end of the world, or can I handle and manage this? Yeah. How much worse could it be?
Well, it kind of goes back to children. Like I'm sure you see your kids, lose something or drop something and it's a big deal for them. But it is a big deal for them. Yeah. That's the worst thing they've ever experienced.
Yeah, it's like if they can't find their stuffy before bedtime, it is full on meltdown. And you're like, all right, where's Mr. Bunny at? Like, where is that thing? You're like, holy, right? Yeah. But it's that it goes back to not exposing yourself to different things, right? If you just live in this little bubble, then you don't have the ability to manage these little issues they're little, but to you they're big because can you imagine if that person that has their steak just slightly overcooked or experiences something like traumatic, how that's going to affect them and how they manage that? It'd be like life ending.
It's a glimpse into their everyday life though, because if that is such a big deal, you got to imagine the other things during their day-to-day existence in their own mind that is just spiraling them up internally, right? Like they must be living in their own state of chaos inside their mind. Like where non-issues are issues for those people.
Yeah.
I really, it's hard to even imagine that, but it's very clear that the people that just have sort of missed the boat in adversity or
Just in a little bit of struggle, like, a little bit of challenge in your life, right?
Yeah.
I was thinking the other day, so there's certain countries that have mandatory military time. So I think South Korea has like 2 years once you're 19, between 19 and 21. I think you get to pick.
I want to say there's some Scandinavian countries.
I think there is as well. Yeah. And Switzerland, I think, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's so cool. I think there should be not necessarily forced military, because maybe that's not your beliefs, not who you're raised, whatever. But there should be some type of like discipline, like mandatory trials or adversity that you have to face, just so that you're not a buttercup throughout your entire like life until you're 40 and you're like, I don't know how to handle this. Like I'm still in my mom's basement. There should be, whether it's mandatory time as a server, like, working in a restaurant or cooking or building something, like, I don't know. What's your thought on that?
Well, I agree with you. I think that some people don't have the basic life skills, and I think that the military teaches people those basic life skills that they may not have gained. And it's kind of funny because the fire department is paramilitary in a lot of ways.
Yep.
Like when you start in, I remember before my first ever shift, the night before, I was learning how to fold a fitted sheet. Like I was on YouTube, like how do I fold a fitted sheet, doing it properly. You have to learn to cook and all these basic things. And some people start and they've never done that stuff before. They've never done their own laundry. They've never cooked a meal. They've, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So having something that would,
like a life boot camp. You're like a life boot camp.
You don't gain that in school, man. Your mom can prep you for school your whole life, and you can show up and never have gained any life skills, right? And then you got Tommy over there that from the age of 3 is making himself breakfast every morning, and he's a champion, right? But
you almost need like a built-in boot camp or something in school that prepares you for that.
Yeah.
Of like, here's a life experience school. You will go be in this environment for 2 to 4 weeks, doing this X, Y, Z, learning these skills, and like, this is setting you up for life. It blows my mind in school how they don't teach like personal finance stuff, or like hammer down essential life skills. Like you're learning sin, cosine, and whatever the
SOHCAHTOA. Yeah.
You're learning that. But you're not learning like how much to put away for this, how much to save for that, how this works, how a mortgage works, like all those life skills that like every adult eventually, most of them will face that.
Yes.
Whereas such a limited amount will use SOHCAHTOA.
Yeah, there's really nothing about managing your finances. There's nothing about managing your mind, meditation, emotion management. Yeah. And then it's just a complete, utter failure of physical literacy. Yeah. People can come out of high school and not know how to squat, and not know what it means to keep a flat back. Basic human needs that you can carry through your life is totally missed in our education system. Yeah. And there's so many old clips of what gym class used to be like years ago, and it was awesome. You see, kids just hammering gymnastics and on monkey bars, and their physical specimens, honestly, in today's standards in the normal education system.
Well, it's like that. It was that military strict environment, which is part of that. That's good, right? Like that should be in the gym class or physical curriculum, right? Like that structure. It's great that you're playing dodgeball. I'm not taking anything away from that. Yeah. Like you have to have fun and relax and stuff. Yeah. But I don't know, maybe play a little less broom ball and do a couple more squats or technique, all that stuff. And it's tough. I don't know how you change that. It's a weird thing.
Yeah, it needs to be a paradigm shift, but you need to have the people that are capable of making the changes in the education system be passionate about those changes. Yeah. Right. And you have to have people that are in phys ed that actually care and weren't just slotted into phys ed, but went there with a purpose to make a difference and have it be impactful. You know, and I don't know. It's yeah.
Have you ever thought, this is like a big brain thing here. It could be a terrible idea, and cult probably isn't the best name for it, but starting your own like cult or commune, you know? So like society's screwed up and like it's messed up.
Yeah.
And you know how you're like, so you'll experience this when you have kids, of just sending your kids to school with all these other shit rats. And you're like, what are they? This is the environment they're in. Whereas if you could produce like such a good environment, you know, like have a town just dedicated to like good people with like shared values and the programming education they're getting is structured in a way that sets them up for life and also in a way that you agree with your fundamental principles and that kind of thing, right? I'm not saying build walls around it.
Yeah,
to like
we're not going David Koresh style commune.
No.
But,
and this is like, but even just thinking, I'm like, how cool it'd be to have an own private teacher and have kids. Because we have friends at the fire hall. The kids are all very similar age. They're good kids and all that. And having all those kids into one like environment with one teacher, you know who their parents are, you know what their values are. You know, having that teacher dedicated to these 12 kids, and then you have input on what they're teaching and stuff.
I think there's two things that you made me think of. Like one, I've got a good group of friends that I've essentially been friends with since high school. And it's really neat. It's actually, I think it's fairly rare to have a large group of friends from high school, you know, 12 years later, and you're all still really very close. We've talked about essentially what it would take to find a really good teacher and pay them a salary as a collective group of friends. And so I don't think you necessarily need a whole bunch of teachers for each subject. You need someone that is very competent that, you know, could teach your children. And to kind of carry on to point 2 of this, there's kind of a global experiment over having your kids go through an education system where all of their peers are their same age. So you think about it, you know, your children go into grade 1 and grade 2 and grade 3 and they're socializing with kids their same age. Is that healthy? Like, should kids be spending more time actually with kids that are 2 years older than them, 3 years older than them, and having this variety of experiences that actually helps them grow when they see how someone 2 years older than them handles a situation or conducts themselves? That might actually accelerate their growth as well. And so it's kind of a weird system. It's a kind of an experiment of
and I think like we have friends that do homeschooling and it's interesting how I like what you're saying about the different age groups and stuff, because even now, like, how many years are we apart? We're 5-6 years apart.
Yeah, I think so. Right.
And Jen has friends, my wife has friends like 10 years apart. And you think back to like when you're in school, even having a friend, like I had a friend that was a year or 2 older than me, and it's just weird, right? You know, you go into school and you're just hanging out and you're like, oh, that person's in grade like 10, I'm in grade 8. And there's that awkwardness, right? Whereas there shouldn't be, right? It should be those different age groups relying on each other and helping each other. And it sucks that we have to cater to the lowest common denominator of like, well, that person in grade 10 will bully a person in grade 8 because they're bigger. Like, well, kick that shitty person out of school. Like, I know that's drastic, but
I see what you're saying.
It sucks. And you can't leave kids behind. So I don't know what the answer is there. Of like, you can't just kick them out, even though it's easy to say that. But they shouldn't have such an influence on these kids' lives, you know?
I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, a raising sea raises all ships. And if you're constantly stooping to the lowest denominator, then everyone is being held back. And I think from a societal standpoint, that's sort of the direction we're going, is we're always concerned about, you know, the stragglers rather than trying to lift everything. And if you lift everything, the stragglers, you know, unfortunately, some stragglers will fall below the sea, but the majority of everything will lift. And I think that's the direction we need to head, is look upwards and try to elevate as many people as you can. So I think you're spot on with that.
And there's some cool programs. So I've looked into different ones because I'm very curious. And I've talked to different parents of like what happens when my kids, they're in a good elementary school, but past that, the system out where we live isn't necessarily the greatest,
Mm.
but there's some cool other options of like a mix of online learning with in-class learning.
Yeah.
And it's more like that private system, which I don't know if that's the greatest environment either, but it's more of that STEM kind of learning environment where they're learning a skill and getting their hands dirty and not just going from social studies to math to science to gym to home. Like, give me something tangible that I can learn and grow with. And I think these environments need to cater to these kids of what they're good at and help enhance those and push those forward, and definitely help them with where they're weak, but they need to push them and help them grow and set them up for future, you know?
So there's a family in Fernie, and he calls it like unschooling his kids in a lot of ways. And so I think they homeschool their kids. I think they might be putting their kids into public school. They're a bit older now, but definitely when their kids were young, they homeschooled, and he would pull his kids out of school any day of the week on a snow day, and they'd be skiing. They'd spend most of their mornings skiing. And you look at how the dad's talking with the children, and they're getting to spend quality time with their father. They're getting to we keep circling back to hardships and difficulties, but I've watched the dad coaching his 2-3-year-old daughter over boxes on skis, and she falls and he's coaching her up and teaching her to put on her skis by herself and all these basic life skills. And the point is, he is giving as much value to that as he is to learning about counting, at two. How can you put value, more value on that? Like, they can learn math whenever, but they also need to learn emotional management and all these other things that you gain from living life. And we have a coworker, Matt, that we're hunting with, and he's same thing. Like, he'll pull his kids and give them life skills, and it's like, this is your education today. You don't need to make it so formal, because spending quality time with me hunting is absolutely valuable for today, and you're going to learn all the other stuff tomorrow. There's always tomorrow.
And that's been something, like, my kids are still young. Margot is 6 and Jack is 4, I hope. 4.
Ish around.
But like, Margot's only in grade 2. She was pushed ahead because her age group's different. We have been hesitant to take them out of school in the past, just because, like, they should be in school, they should be learning. But looking at it from like a 10,000 foot view is, what is she gaining more out of? Is she going to gain more out of going skiing for the day and missing like a simple math class and whatever else she's doing, like phys ed and all that? Is she gaining more out of the experience that she's spending with her family, the exercise that she's getting, and whatever else she's finding, right? Is it emotional management, like you're saying? Is she dealing with hardships? Is she, what are all these other intangibles that she's learning over the standard, structured system, right? And that's something we've had to pull ourselves, kind of snap ourselves out of, is forcing her to go when it's like, oh, why don't we have a family ski day? Why don't we do this? Why don't we do that? And embracing that, that time off of, like, does she need to go to school 5 days a week? No. Like, let's pull her out every other week and we'll go do something as a family. And you only get so much time with your kids. Like, Jack's going into play school, whatever it is, half days next year. And then after that, he's going to be in full-time school. That is like the most time you will ever have to spend with your kids, is from when they're born till when they go to first grade, right? Like, before that, that is the most time you'll get. So how much impact can you have on their lives, and how much can you set them up for life by being around them and teaching them, and not just like sending them away because it's the convenient thing to do, right? So it's a tough thing, and it's not always easy, because kids suck sometimes. Like, they do. They're miserable, and you're like, this sucks. This is terrible. I'm not having a day. But I think the good days outweigh the bad days, if you know what I mean.
100%.
Yeah.
I think there's 2 types of people that homeschool their children. I think there are people that are very socially awkward and don't want their kids around other kids, and they want to kind of just steer their kids in their own selfish directions.
Yeah, control them in that little bubble.
In their little bubble, and they are totally
Yeah.
weird, homeschooled, bubble wrap children. We all know who those kids are.
Yeah.
Then there's the kids that you're talking about that, hey, when you're not in school, right, when you're not learning, our education system, you're going to be having life experiences. You'll be doing activities, or you'll be in sports, doing stuff, and those kids flourish because they're getting the best of both worlds. They're getting their education, and they're also gaining life skills. But the socialization aspect is very important.
Yeah.
You need to socialize them with kids their age, but like you're saying, when you're pulling them out, they are getting that socialization with adults.
Yeah.
And when you talk to children and they're actually very comfortable speaking with an adult, and it's almost shocking now when you have a kid that can just talk to you fluently.
Yep.
And then you get some kids that don't know how to communicate with adults. Like they honestly do not know how. They shut down. They can't even make eye contact with you.
Yeah.
There's a tangible difference in those children.
Yeah, I agree. And that's something that's been nice about like Margot being in jiu-jitsu is she's getting more comfortable. Like, hey, you need to look your professor in the eye. Like, no, go give him like, a slap bump, and, getting her more comfortable with the adults and the bigger kids and all that stuff. And those are cool environments. Like, I think martial arts is a cool environment where there are those range of age groups, right? And I think if you can, to kind of, I guess, go full circle on this, if you can find, maybe you don't have the luxury of putting your kids in these programs or homeschooling and do other things, but I think there's enough extracurricular stuff that you can find that I always shit on hockey because I just don't like the hockey culture and all that environment.
And the price.
But, I mean, if you can find a good environment, a good team, sure. But I think there's so many other avenues for kids to learn, and like a guy from work just put his kid in karate, and like that's fantastic, right?
Yes.
Like going to learn the discipline, going to learn respect, all these other skills.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you have to do as a parent, and put them in these different avenues to help them grow and move forward, right? Yeah.
No, I agree.
Let's go into the culture of gyms. So I was thinking about this the other day because do you ever go on Barbend?
No,
Like
I don't know what that is.
So it's like a fitness news website, and they have some good articles and stuff. And the one girl that was getting interviewed talked about her experience going from CrossFit to strongman and how much better the culture and environment was. And I was in that Olympic lifting environment for a bit, right? And all these different spaces are so different, right? Like even the typical gym bro environment. Like, have you been into Good Life or anything in the last like 5-10 years?
I've been into a YMCA. Yeah.
How was that?
Weird.
It's such a strange thing, right? It's a very like, look over your shoulder, like, what's that person lifting? What's this person lifting? Like, you're sitting there trying to get a workout in, and they're like,
totally. Yeah.
what's going on here?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Whereas CrossFit is that group environment, everybody doing the same thing, pushing forward, but there's still that competition aspect in it. And what's your perspective on, I guess my question here is, what's your perspective on how all these cultures different, and like, what's optimal? Maybe optimal is at a different stage of your life, or?
Yeah. Well, I can definitely speak to, I guess, the contrast of, I guess a low time that I've witnessed in gyms.
Yeah.
So, I've seen, like, I've been at this gym for a long time, and I've seen it kind of go through an ebb and a flow of a valley into a peak.
Yep.
And the most, I guess, fractured the community has ever been.
And what kind of gym is it?
It's a CrossFit gym. Yeah. And so in this gym, I've witnessed when the community has been fractured due to almost two communities under one roof. And so I think, there is the general population, which is doing their CrossFit, and they're just the average person that wants to show up and live a good, healthier life. And then there was this competitive group that was in there at the same time.
Yeah.
And there's something about when you have that kind of title as a competitor, as a fire breather, as a blah, 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 you almost gain this sort of persona about you. And some people actually do feel that they are better than the general population.
Yeah.
Right. So they get their own little competitive corner, and they think that they're entitled to the best barbells, and they can make noise when the coach is talking to the general population, and it just becomes this growth, this tumor in your gym, and the resentment builds from both sides, and it's very fractured. So I think that no matter what you're doing, whether it's strongman, whether it's CrossFit, having a cohesive community is paramount. You need everyone that is under your roof, kind of striving for the same mission statement, striving for the same goal. And I think when you have that, the energy in your building, because it's unified, becomes stronger, it's more palpable, and more conducive to everyone achieving success in their goals. So, you know, that's what I can speak to. You know, but I think that you're right in the fact that every place you go has their own culture. I can contrast this well to jiu-jitsu gyms, where I've been to 2 different gyms. Culture is totally different. Whatever someone is doing when they're pursuing a future goal or passion, I almost think they need to find the community that jives with what they're looking for.
Not try to be a different part of that community within that community, you know.
It won't last.
It's interesting because I was in that CrossFit space for a while, and I never really was part of the community. I was always like on the competitor side doing that. So I totally know what you're talking about of like,
you were separate.
I was, absolutely. But like, I wasn't adding anything to that. From that business model, like looking back, I don't know why they let me there. Like, I don't know. Like, that was my goal. And like, they knew that. They knew that I only wanted to be part of the competitive team. And like, I maybe did 2 group classes in like 3 years, like if that. But that was like my thing, right? And I think it's also up to the person in charge being like, okay, like if you're going to be doing this, it needs to be outside of this. Here's the clear boundaries and stuff. Do not cross this. And don't get me wrong, like I was respectful, and like I even helped coach a class once when like nobody showed up. Like I still tried to be a good person. But I think that gets lost sometimes. And it's even going from the CrossFit space to the Olympic lifting gym that I was at shortly for like 2 months. It was a very interesting environment where everyone was on the same goal. Everyone was like, okay, I'm going to, you know, train. I'm trying to max out this. Like, not necessarily CrossFit is like, the goal should be fitness for life and being fit for life, right? Whereas Olympic lifting or strongman, it's more, I want to lift these heavy weights. Like, it is more specialized, but everybody there is like that. The whole goal of that gym is to be better at those skills and like grow and lift heavier weights and be stronger, right? So there's kind of that community within that as well, which is, you know, it's
like the common goal that's fostering that. The only gyms that seem to lack that is those kind of, you know, the classic golds or a Y or because people flounder. Like there's people that are in there that don't know what they're doing, and they're totally doing random stuff, and I don't think they even have a defined goal. Like they don't measure progress. They just show up and they'll do a few shoulder presses and a few of these and a few of that. And nothing's tracked, nothing's documented. So they're just floundering. Then you got some people that are following an intense program, and this guy's doing calisthenics, and you know, there's a bunch of people doing their own stuff under one roof, and that's kind of what that weirdness is. It's a bunch of people striving for their own little mini goals, not a cohesive.
Their goal is to just show up 3 days a week, not to anything else.
But you're in an Olympic weightlifting community. Everyone's trying to drive up their clean and jerk and their snatch.
It's like that is what you're doing. And it was an interesting article, and I really enjoyed it, and it kind of got me thinking about that.
Community. It always comes back to finding good, cool communities.
Do you I was telling you the story of my knee injury and kind of the ego lifting and stuff that was going on. Does anything good ever happen from ego lifting?
PRs.
PR.
Yeah. There's lots of good that can happen from ego lifting. Totally. You lift more weight than you've ever picked up ever. And if you can make it through without an injury, doing that, riding on the wave of your ego,
Yeah.
then hey, you just scored a PR.
Yeah.
But there's inherent risk that comes with that lift. If you ego lift, it's like you are taking the dice and you are rolling them.
Yeah.
And you might blow something, or you could have an awesome day.
Yeah.
And if it's the former, then it's not a fun time.
It was interesting because on Barbend they talked. I think it was Barbend or somewhere else. They talked about Arnold Schwarzenegger's best lifts.
Yeah.
It was very interesting because they're higher than I thought they would be for some. And like back squat, I was like, okay, this makes sense. Like 525, and deadlift 610, like strong, good numbers.
Yeah.
The bench blew me away, 710.
Ooh.
Like, it's very interesting because from the general fitness or people that are just fit, usually it's like deadlift is the top,
Yeah.
squat is the middle,
Deadlift.
bench is the lowest, right?
Yeah.
Whereas I think you see this threshold get broken where you cap out on that squat and that deadlift and they switch, and then bench, if you hammer through on bench and just keep grinding away, like the heaviest bench in the world is insane. It's like 1,300 pounds. It's in those stupid suits, but it's still like insane. But even raw, like it's nuts. It's over 1,000 pounds, which blows my mind.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, it is weird actually. Like to think about my bench being higher than my deadlift is actually something I can't comprehend.
Yeah,
it doesn't even make sense in my brain. How
like that feeling of pulling like a heavy weight off the ground, all of a sudden it's on my chest.
Yeah. Just these little things, like my arm versus my leg. Like, what are we talking about here?
It's
my
crazy.
Pec versus my quad. It's like yeah. Really nuts.
Those numbers blew me away. I think about this a lot, and we play these games at work. If I gave you X amount of money, what would you do, or what limb would you cut off, or just weird stuff. We won't go into the
Sick
deep end on this,
twisted minds.
But if I gave you $1 million to start a business, what would you do with that? And it can't just be like investing into like the stocks or house or whatever. Like,
totally.
You're still a firefighter. Mm-hmm. You have $1 million to start a business. What are you doing with it?
So if we put like a caveat around it, like you need to actually dump this money into that business, right? I think I would just make the most badass gym you could fathom.
Hell
like
yeah.
Just massive square footage. You have turf, it's like you got like CrossFit Mayhem with like a whole football field almost. You've got recovery things. So you've got some cold plunges, you've got saunas, and just any piece of equipment that you could want, you have in the gym. I would make it the most badass gym that I want to train at every single day.
Yeah.
And then just turn it into a business that runs itself. And you just start just have the coolest space in Alberta to go and do fitness in. Yeah. It would be so cool.
It's like a luxury gym.
Yeah. And it would just stoke the fire of my passion. That's like the hobby answer, right? And you don't want to. It's not as fun if I want to buy some investment properties and have an Airbnb chain. It's like, but
totally. Because I thought it's funny because we're basically on the same wavelength.
Yeah.
I too would start a gym, but it'd be more of I'd buy a nice condo bay with an upstairs for like a cool podcast suite and like a lounge area. And I'd buy some baller ass equipment for like the main level. Yeah. And it'd be like an invite only.
Nice.
You have to apply and you pay like, I don't know, $100, $200 a month.
Yeah.
But it's like capped. So there's like 20 people, 30 people.
Yeah.
And it supports itself. Like it makes enough just to support itself and not be a burden, right? Yeah. I think when you get to a certain level, it's like, okay, I got to hire people, I got to do this, that's X, Y, Z. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you have just 20 people with like a punch code and automatic e-transfer, it's like we're set,
you
right?
Just got to pay your property tax.
Just pay the property tax, like pay some of the expenses and stuff and maybe make a little bit just to buy some protein with.
So that answer surprised me. I thought you were going to say you were going to build a ball and indoor surfing like some, like a Dubai style.
That number would have to be like
way higher than $1 million.
10 times. Yeah. That would be so. If we change this around and you give me $10 million or like $50 million, I would absolutely build like an indoor wave complex.
There's nothing like that for us.
Not in Canada.
Prairie folk.
No, we're landlocked here and it's miserable.
Yeah.
Like I live for the ocean. If I didn't have the job I did and live where I live, I would absolutely be somewhere coastal.
Yeah.
Because that's like, I love the ocean. And Jen loves the ocean too. That's why we work. And like our vacations are always somewhere where there's water and surfing and swimming and stuff. And I hope my kids get to experience that. And I want them to live. Because I spent a semester in Australia, pretty close to the beach. I'd take the bus to the surf every morning, come back, do night classes. And I really hope that they get to experience that as well. And I want to push them for that.
Did you ever consider like making the move to the West Coast? Was that ever something that you considered?
So when I went to school in Australia, I hit a breaking point of like, I don't want to do business school anymore. This is miserable. I don't want to be in an office. And I also think the system, as we kind of alluded to earlier, like even when you go to secondary education, it's not necessarily stuff that you need. Like I was getting primed for working in an office environment and all this stuff where I think maybe a different avenue I should have taken was like the entrepreneurial side of it, where you start your own business and how that all works and stuff. And I felt so kind of disheartened with where I was and in life and like what I was pursuing that I just wanted to come home. And from there, that just spawned into like, okay, what fire department can I join, right? Like Calgary, friends around Calgary. Maybe I'll go there, maybe I'll go this place and that place. And not that I regret anything, but it would have been cool to try to go somewhere coastal. Yeah. And I think, but at that point, I was so homesick that I just wanted to come home and I'm a very like homebody person. Like this is
really? I didn't know that about you. Yeah.
I don't know if you know this, but I don't like people that much. So like I thrive at home and this is my environment where I think if I would have been at home before that and gone coastal and had like a job and a community and all that there, then I would have done better. If you know what I mean. Yeah,
it's really hard to start somewhere fresh with no community and no family. Yeah. And the fire department is a very unique career that people don't typically leave their fire service once they start. It's like
the golden handcuffs they call it, right?
It truly is.
Yeah.
It truly is. Yeah. And it's not in a bad way because there's a lot of good that comes from being in the same department. You get to see the growth of your department, your city. You get to move up through the ranks in your service and kind of experience the fire service for everything that it can offer you if you're there long enough. Yeah. Some people start later and they don't get to see all the ranks. If you start early enough, you can see all the ranks. And you also build that true family, especially in a smaller service. Yeah. You really do have that family aspect where you're genuinely close with everyone in your service. But to contrast that with something like nursing, like Chumman can go work anywhere. Yeah. And I don't think she's overly attached to her unit. It's sort of people come and go all the time. And she could pick up and move to BC and be totally fine with that tomorrow. Yeah. I can't. There's a lot of barriers that would prevent that from ever happening. Right?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's one of the coolest professions in the States as well, is that nurse environment where you can go just work at all these different hospitals and travel throughout the country. And there's jobs like that are so flexible. And I think one of the beauties of being a firefighter is that our time off at least allows us to go and travel and do stuff and experience all these different things. Yeah. Right. And we can, rather than you're stuck in a 9 to 5 and you get 2 weeks of holidays, 3 weeks of holidays a year, and it's tough. Whereas we get the luxury of being able to go these places and experience these things. Right.
The crew aspect of fire departments, it also requires some continuity of people. Yeah. And I think that the more you have randoms working on your crew, the less the culture just becomes very different. I couldn't imagine what that would be like to every day your whole crew is new.
Yeah, that would be strange if somehow there was just like, oh, Tommy's here from Saskatchewan. You're like, who the F is Tommy?
Yeah. Yeah. Like, Tommy's a little weird. He's wiping boogers on the wall. Like,
okay, I want to ask you about that.
Yeah.
We have an issue at work of a Booger Bandit.
There's a clear Booger Bandit within our walls, and I'm not going to name names. I do have
You were
some
so
suspects.
mad.
I was very upset.
You're still so mad.
I am upset. I can feel myself getting angry that I looked on the wall and there's a booger on the wall, and it doesn't.
A booger?
Oh, no, multiple boogers.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it wasn't just, that, I think that actually deeply bothered me more is it wasn't just a single booger. There were multiple boogers. And so I know that there's a Booger Bandit.
Yeah, he's just waking up in the middle of the night and just...
Oh, yeah. And then just boogers smearing.
Oh, God.
I know. It honestly, like...
What kind of person?
Who raised you? Oh. Disgusting. What is going on here?
And Tommy from the country.
God. From Saskatchewan. Jeez.
Do you do New Year's resolutions ever? Like, is that something you...
I have, and I've failed miserably at them. Almost every time I've set New Year's resolutions, I haven't made them attainable. I've made them like too lofty of goals.
Yeah.
And
The issue I have with New Year's resolutions is you're trying to set it up for like an entire year, which I don't think is a smart goal to have.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you go into a New Year's resolution, it has to be something that's like little, attainable, and for a month. Maybe like set up multiple, but like January is this, February is this, March is that. One cool one that I saw, do you know who Pat Barber is?
I've heard the name many times.
In the CrossFit space for a very long time, very smart person. He did a cool one, which I'm going to try for January, is a no yelling one. So he does it with his kids, and it's cool because you'll experience this when you're a parent. Just some stuff you just lose it eventually, and you're like, what the hell? So you're still allowed to like yell. You're trying to limit that, and you're trying not to, obviously. But say he posted the other day about how it's going. He's like, yeah, I'm X amount of days in. I've yelled 3 times and only at one kid because he just knows how to push my buttons. So it's almost raising awareness to what is causing that, who is causing that, and how I can manage that, because it does not feel good when you yell at your kids. Sometimes you're like, this is necessary, and sometimes you're like, get off that, you're going to kill yourself, right? But I thought it was a very cool goal, and it's something simple. It's not like, oh, I'm going to have X amount of calories. It's just like a simple shift in how you parent and how you go throughout your day, and you're allowed to make mistakes, and it's not like, oh, I yelled, this is over. It's like, okay, let's come back, let's reset, and let's be better, right? And I don't know. I think I'm going to try that for January, and I also need to limit sugar, I think, for January, because I've just been crushing candy these holidays. If you've never been to a fire hall at Christmas,
it's ridiculous.
It is insane.
It's insane.
Like, just calories upon calories on the table.
So just for some context, what happens is everyone's got too much treats and sugar and stuff at home. So they all just, like, every person brings in their excess baking to the hall. So you walk in and it's just home cooked goodies just spread out all over our table, and people drop off. Oh,
people all the time. They're like, oh, we'll bring these to the firefighters, and use the firefighter. Like, please stop. I appreciate it. I love the thought, but I'm getting so fat right now.
My willpower is only so
much.
much.
I had 8 butter tarts in a span of like an hour. Like, you need to stop.
They're so good.
Take these away from me.
Yeah, totally.
And I've definitely gained like 5 pounds in the last 2 weeks just from crushing candy.
Yeah, but it's also hard to go like off sugar. I find that like the mental hurdles when you're just not having any is also difficult.
I know. And so I think even making this attainable, it's going to be like no treats until after dinner time. Yeah. And after dinner, like have 2 or 3 or whatever. And then, try to cut yourself off.
Yeah.
I think that's the way that I'm going to try to do it.
And cut yourself off.
Because do you remember I did no sugar November?
Yeah. And how long do you last? A day?
So I did a day, and then in the second day, I was craving a chocolate bar. And this is after Halloween. Yeah. And there's so many chocolate bars. And so I crushed like 3 full-size candy bars. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, we'll reset. We'll be better the third day. Yeah. The third day was not any better.
Yeah, you're making up for the lost time.
Terrible.
No, that's the problem. That's the problem. Back in wrestling, we used to cut weight, and you'd go through this period of just deprivation. And I used to torment myself. I would come home and watch food shows, but then you end up, wrestlers getting this sort of binge eating mentality of I can't have it, so when I can get it, I just overeat it.
It's
right?
yeah, just that unhealthy like cutting, bulking.
Not a healthy cycle.
God.
Yeah.
So you gonna do any resolutions, or are you just
Well,
gonna?
yeah. I mean, I haven't actually thought about it. It's cool you're bringing it up. I think my wife and I, what we've done is we've sort of just used New Year's as a time to reflect on where we're at and kind of where we want to be in the next year.
Yeah.
More as a couple. What do we want to achieve? And it's like I said, anytime I've seemed to have set fitness goals, it's just been too lofty, and then I get halfway through the year and I'm like, well, that's not happening.
Yeah.
But I think if you do set goals, I'll make them more attainable. But I think overarching, I'm going to use this New Year's just as a time of reflection on good habits, where I'm heading, and then kind of give some momentum to that direction.
Realign yourself.
Realign myself. Yeah.
That's cool.
It's a good check-in. Good yearly check-in.
I think that's cool too. I think that's something that's necessary, and I think more people should do that rather than set up a goal of, I don't know, drink 9 gallons of water every single day for the rest of your life.
Have you heard of that? Is it like hard 75 or hard 40? I don't know. There's some sort of thing where it's like, you got to exercise twice a day. One of them has to be outside. You got to read X amount of pages. You got to drink this much water. And I think
sounds miserable.
Yeah, it's intense. I've seen multiple people do it, and either they've actually made it through and it's been really great for them. Yeah. But more often than not, it's so hard to maintain that every single day that people get partway in and then fail. Yeah. And I think that kind of has its own cycle of discouragement.
Yeah, you're just like, I failed. I can't do this. I'm going back to how I was.
Yeah.
Have you ever read Atomic Habits?
I own it, but I haven't read it. I've listened to the guy. I think it's James.
I couldn't tell you what
Clear or something like that. I've listened to it on podcast a couple times. He's a cool guy.
I just know that I think it's Atomic Habits, where it just talks about being 1% better every day. Yeah. And just those small incremental improvements, rather than people go from 0 to 100 when they try to do this stuff. Yeah. It's just not attainable, right? You just can't. Humans can't switch like that. Well, maybe like David Goggins can, because he's carrying the goddamn boat. But even I think it's like those incremental changes of who he is and how people are, and that's that slow growth. Yeah. And I think we're both reading The Art of War, right? Mm-hmm. And it's kind of funny because I sent you an excerpt from it, and you're like, "Oh, I'm literally reading that right now." And in there, they have something cool too, and it talks about you don't need to boil the ocean necessarily. Like, if you're trying to do stuff like this, like start a podcast or start your own YouTube channel or whatever, it doesn't need to be this hard and fast switch. It needs to be this incremental ramp up. And it needs to be controlled, right? If you just put the hammer down and go, like, you're going to run out of fuel. Like, you'll get stressed out. And I've done it. I've done it plenty of times where it's like, I have this idea for this cool thing, this cool project. I'm going to do this. And you're so stoked. That's all you think about the entire day. And then it's like, oh, this is like, I don't know if I could do this.
I think momentum is very real. Yeah. So like, you have those small changes. But if you continue with those small changes, you gain momentum. You can gain momentum in positive directions in your life and negative directions in your life. Yeah. Hence the need for continuous self-reflection to witness the good things in your life and the things that you want to take away from your life. Because if you don't have those check-ins, you can build momentum with bad habits. Yeah. And over a long enough time horizon, it can take you down or up. Yeah. So reflection is important. Yeah. But harder these days to commit the time to self-reflect.
Yeah. It is. A lot of distractions, a lot of stuff, but definitely necessary for improvement. Yeah. We're basically at time there. Do you have a quote? Do you have anything? I know we're using your phone right now to record, but do you got anything off the top of your head you want to finish with?
No, not off the top of my head. If you have one, let's bring it up
for you. Let's see. I have a notes section in my phone, and if there's cool stuff, I'll write it down, and just to have it, just to every now and then look through. And
actually, you know what? We talked about it last night. Being fit gives you the ability to be aggressive. Yeah. being unfit gives you the ability to talk about being aggressive.
I like that a lot. And it's for reference. That's on a fire ground. You get a lot of people that beat their chest and are like, you gotta go do this, you gotta go do that. And it's like, put your money where your mouth is and be able to do that. You know, I love that.
Lead by example.
Yeah, I love that. So this is from, it's actually, we were watching the James Bond movies the other day, and I thought this was a pretty cool one. This is after someone dies. I don't want to be a spoiler, even though the movie's been out for a while. So, the proper function of man is to live, not to exist. I shall not waste my days in trying to prolong them. I shall use my time, which I thought was cool. It's like, don't waste your days just trying to stay alive. Use your days being alive, right? Which is neat.
I love that. That's a great way to end.
Sweet.
Episode 2.
Episode 2. It's a wrap.